a dream.
It's one small step for man.
I am the greatest.
You want something, go get it. Period.
Seeing it as a journey rather than something that like you're trying to start and finish. Stop just trying to make yourself happy and really prioritize your fulfillment. Because I truly believe the quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions you ask.
What's up, my fellow dreamers, doers, achievers? This is episode number 17 of the Dream Big & Co. podcast. And in this episode, I was able to have a great conversation with someone very, very dear to my heart. In due time, this came into fruition, and the value Sam brings to the table on this one was beyond what I expected. This entire conversation touches on many things we can all be doing better as individuals, and we get down to the core of life itself. For Sam herself to give you a little snippet before this episode begins, as you will hear her say, she's an intentional, purpose-driven human being, and she is currently working on a great project called the Prosperous Pursuit. We touch on it a bunch, and she'll introduce you to what it is, and you should definitely check it out. It's in the footnotes. Even more so, subscribing to her newsletter, in which you can get her free new workbook she made, and she gives out weekly crucial advice you can implement into your own life. And however, getting back to the point itself, it wasn't always like that for Sam. And we dive straight into the deep end on Sam's life and the things that happened to her in the past to cause her to be the person she is and the position she is in today. To keep this episode in alignment, as it definitely should be, the quote for today's episode is, "Self-love is not selfish. You cannot truly love another until you know how to love yourself." Self-love is not selfish. You cannot truly love another until you know how to love yourself. Now, before we get into episode number 17, one last thing I want to talk about is our sponsor for this episode, and not just your everyday sponsor, but a company that is creating lasting impact in a powerful community, and that is Startup Island. Not only does it make sense for Startup Island to be this episode's sponsor because Sam and I met through them, we're involved with them and impacted by them, which we talk about in the episode, but because they are truly doing amazing work. And I mean it when I say it, they're doing amazing work. They provide workshops, retreats, adventures, travel experiences. They have coaches and resources, a plethora of connections and resources you can have for yourself. As they say, their phrase is, they create travel experiences for the entrepreneurial minded. And the one phrase they really talk about and emphasize, which I truly love, is being the CEO of your own life. And the way and the thing I take away from this is, yes, we have companies, startups, external ventures we're working on, but the most important startup and venture you can be working on is yourself. You know, you're your own startup, and if you can conquer your mind, be the CEO of your own life, the world is boundless and limitless for you. So the work Startup Island is doing to create value for these kids and impact them to go on to do greater things is something I truly admire. From personal experience, being on one of their trips to Costa Rica for spring break, I was impacted on it, and I came back a better person. I create better work, and I'm more intentional. I create long-term goals because of the things they taught me. You know, even working with the horses was truly something which you can find out for yourself through the videos they have, which I'll put in the footnotes. But all in all, it really helped me, and I know it'll help you if you're entrepreneurial minded, looking for that type of thing, or just want to become a better individual. To check them out, you can do so at joinstartupisland.com and even on social media at Startup Island. I will include all that in the footnotes, and if you want to look further, which I suggest you do, you can do so by touching on those links and going to those sources. So to end it here and get right into it, this is episode number 17 with Sam Stokes herself. I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you at the end. So, is it appropriate if I say I'm here with Sam Stokes and I'm stoked to be here? I'm stoked
Heard
for
that
this
one
episode.
before.
Yeah. No, I'm super pumped. But just to give you a little background before we get into it, before I ask you a boatload of questions, because I'm super interested in everything you're doing, and I think a lot of people can get value from what you're saying, is right now you're on like a fire-blazing voyage to your own life right now, and your mindset, to the way you use social media, to being a purpose-driven human being. It is something awesome to see and witness in a time where a lot of things aren't like that, and a lot of people aren't acting like that, especially on social media. And even more so, you're in service of others. Like we always say, we want to improve ourselves so we can impact lives. So you're like living that right now. So I usually don't start the podcast like this, but I have to commend you in a way.
Thank you so much.
And praise you and admire you for that.
I appreciate that.
But would you want to get into a way our connection and how it started at Costa Rica and Startup Island, which is unique way we met?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I guess last March, end of March last year, me and Anthony both went on a trip with this amazing company, Startup Island, who host personal development and professional development retreats. And this one was in Costa Rica, and it's a week where we dive deep into everything personal and professional development. It's focused on entrepreneurial-minded students, but it's not just for entrepreneurs. It's really for anyone who wants to live that purpose-based, intentional lifestyle. So we spent a week diving into all that and just really sharing what we've each learned on our unique journeys with each other. And ever since, I mean, even just watching what you've done and grow, and the whole community is all working on their own projects, and it's a really inspiring community to be a part of. So that was actually my third trip with them, and I'll probably be going again this year and for the foreseeable future. So if you have a chance to check them out, definitely. I mean, that is not like a sales promotion kind of thing. No. They're an incredible company and something that
I feel like
I'm so happy I'm a part of.
I feel like a sales rep outside.
Yeah,
just talking
like
about
I don't even have to be a sales rep to be a sales rep for them. I can't recommend it enough. So definitely, that was an incredible experience. Brought us together along with many other inspiring humans and entrepreneurs. Yeah,
and everything takes timing, and like everything falls in line. So I wanted to have you on this podcast for a while, but I think it's like fitting that you're here now. Like we're in a good space. So
definitely.
Getting right into it, I want to talk about like going back to the beginning, like when you were a child growing up in South Jersey. How was it like with your environment at home? Like who inspired you to the way you are, and like how was it when you were a little child?
That is very interesting. I was actually thinking about this on my way here, just going over different things that I've been studying. And when I was growing up, like this whole concept of entrepreneurship and just being purpose-driven and everything that is a part of my life now really wasn't a part of my life then. And I lived a very average life. I went to Catholic school my entire life, so I think that had a big influence on my drive to kind of excel, because it was just, I was always in a very driven environment where there were high expectations. But something I just vividly remember from my childhood and especially my teenage years was always having this lack of purpose and a lack of like things I was passionate about. And I did all the things I thought I should do. And I played the sports that I thought were cool and that my friends were playing, and I got really good grades because that was like what people told you should do. And I went through like a phase in high school where I was like, F college, I'm not going. I'm moving to California. I'm being homeless on the beach. I'll like paint surfboards or something, because art has always been a really big part of my life. And my mom was like, okay, let's be real. Like, you're going to college. So, and I just, that theme kept popping up where I had these small dreams of taking the unconventional path, but there were always people around me pushing me to take the sure path and the path that is predefined and laid out, and you know what that gets you. And up until my senior year of college, that was very much the path that I was on. And it just started to get to the point where all those years of doing what was expected of me and kind of not living with a purpose, but just pleasing others and meeting those expectations got really unfulfilling. And I made a decision in the beginning of my senior year of college that I was like, all right, just like a side note, I graduated college a year early. So I was like, mental note, I was like, okay, I have an extra year to like make something work. I should be in school anyways, so kind of like a gap year, I guess you could say. Let's try something unconventional and see how it goes. And so all of that like childhood stuff of not having a purpose and always like really just following the rules and doing what was expected of me led me to now start this brand and this company that helps those people who are in a similar mindset and situation that they feel like they have to meet these expectations and standards, create their own path and do what actually fulfills them. So yeah.
And you even say that in your bio. It's like you're here to help people from lost and unfulfilled to clear, confident, and purpose driven. So it's something you live through and you want to help others with, so you're in service of others.
Definitely.
But I wanted to get into that specifically, like education being this thing that society lays out for us. It's really important. Like, education is crucial. It really is.
Oh my gosh, yes.
The way the schooling system is now, it's not the best for most people. So did it all reach a boiling point for you as you went through the whole system in each level?
So yeah, this is something I have a lot of thoughts on, just, you know, in some ways how much our traditional education system lacks. And I think what really brought me to that boiling point was I started doing my own self-education, and I started reading these books and taking online courses and realizing how much information, life-changing information, was out there that I had gone my entire life and spent a ton of money in school and time in school learning these things that weren't nearly as relevant or important as what a $20 book was teaching me. And not that what we learn in school isn't important, and that's something that I don't necessarily know how I feel about currently. Just there are parts of traditional education that are important. I don't think college is unvaluable or like unnecessary. I think if you have the privilege and the ability to go, it's so worth it, and there's so much. It just teaches you about life regardless of what you learn in the classroom.
Yeah, the resources and opportunities.
Yeah, the resources and opportunities are the biggest thing. So if you're in college, definitely take advantage of that, because that's, I think, the real value of it. Yeah. But also, regardless of what your education level is, getting that self-education that you're not being taught in school. And I guess where I stand on that now is, rather than being bitter that we're not taught that in school, just go seek it on your own. Like, it's out there. It's incredibly affordable. I mean, I've taken online courses that are like maybe $300 that have completely changed the course of my life. Wow. And you don't have to go to college to get something like that, but you do have to be willing to invest in yourself and do the work and buy the books and do what the book tells you when there's not a homework assignment that you have to do for class. Like, still do that homework that's there, but take that responsibility upon yourself to educate yourself about the things you want to know, rather than saying they should teach us this in school and they're not teaching us this kind of thing. Yeah. So yeah, that's how I feel about education, but your knowledge and your wisdom is a very important area of life. And it, you know, that's something I was listening to a podcast with Aubrey Marcus and Jordan Peterson the other day. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Jordan Peterson. He's like one of my favorite people. But he said your ignorance will always outweigh your knowledge. And that is so true. Like, there's just so much that you can, you can learn. Yeah. And so much we don't know that, like, you can't afford to spend your time not learning.
Yeah. I always find myself, like, saying that and seeing that, where it's just this giant learning curve where, like, there really is no end line. The end line is what you make it.
Right.
So I constantly find myself trying to learn more, like read more, do more. But it's just finding the balance between everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And accepting that, like, there is no end point. Like, you're going to be learning new things and discovering new things and learning that maybe what you once thought to be true is no longer true for the rest of your life, and seeing it as a journey rather than something that, like, you're trying to start and finish.
Exactly. Yeah. Like making, yeah. I totally agree. Like reinventing yourself all the time. But going back to one of the things you said before, you said when you were younger and like before the way you are now, you really had no purpose. So what would you say for someone who can seem happy externally and they might be smiling at their job or with their family or what they're doing, but inside they're not really fulfilled?
Yeah.
Like maybe 2 cents on that, or ways people can nudge out of that in a way?
Definitely. So I think maybe 2 weeks ago, I wrote a blog post on the difference between happiness and fulfillment. And there's a huge difference between being happy and being fulfilled. And that's really exactly where I found myself my senior year of college, and pretty much like my whole life in hindsight, that I was a very happy person, a very privileged person, that I have everything under the sun I could wish for, but there's still this empty feeling inside of something that's not fulfilled. And if you're in that position, you may be feeling a lot of guilt and shame and confusion and that feeling of being lost, because when you're just looking objectively at your life, it's like everything's so great. What more could I want? And you're like, just feel so guilty for desiring more. But really, it's not that you're not happy enough. It's that those things, the same things that make you happy, don't make you fulfilled. And knowing that there is a difference between what makes you happy and what makes you fulfilled. And rather than, there's a ton of talk, especially in the personal development and self-help space, about thinking positive and following the things that make you happy. Just do what makes you happy. But a lifetime of doing things that make you happy might also make you very unfulfilled. And, happiness is just one emotion. So there's a whole range of emotions you're going to experience and feel, and happiness is just one of them. And on the path to fulfillment, you're going to experience a lot of things that make you very unhappy, and having to leave relationships that experience might cause you pain and suffering, and there's going to be sacrifices you have to make and pain that you endure on the pursuit of growth and improvement. So it's really not about just doing the things that make you, if you want to be fulfilled, the path to get there is not doing what makes you happy. And that was a big mental shift I had to make. I went through this phase where I was just like,
did that throw you off course and you had to like,
when I figured that out, because I was like on this path of like, oh, I'm just going to do whatever the heck makes me happy. And like, if I don't want to do it, I'm not doing it. But when you really put that into reality, it's like, okay, well, every day when I go to the gym, that doesn't necessarily make me happy. Like, it kind of sucks. I'm like, all right, I really don't want to do this. Sometimes I'm miserable going, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm forcing myself to do this. And it's painful, and it tires you out and all that. But the mental clarity that it gives me after going, and the reassurance knowing that my health is in check and I have that vitality, is fulfilling. So like working out gives me that fulfillment, but it doesn't necessarily give me happiness in the moment, So when it comes down to like, okay, I'm only going to do the things that make me happy, there's a lot of stuff that you want to do, that you need to do to be fulfilled, that would be crossed off that list if you're only doing what makes you happy. So my advice to those people would be, stop just trying to make yourself happy and really prioritize your fulfillment.
And that takes, in a way, a keen sense of self-awareness, which is like the absolute root of everything. That's why I'm a big emphasizer on yoga and meditation and even journaling. Like, I underestimate the power that journaling really has for me. Because it really causes me to be aware of my not only day-to-day activities, but my entire life. I'll get into one question later I want to ask you, but just sticking on this topic now since it's brought up, like, how important has yoga, meditation, journaling been for you? Because I know you do those things. And, like, do you consistently do it every day? Do you make sure you do it?
Yeah. So this is something I actually, like, I set intentions at the beginning of every month. And one of my intentions for this month was more yoga, journaling, and meditation. And to be completely honest, I haven't been doing great with it. And it's something that used to be in my life more so, and you get busy and you let it go, and that's not an excuse. Like, the busier you are, the more you need it.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
You know, but it's those have been journaling. I'm pretty consistent with, and I don't really have a set journaling routine, but just as thoughts come up, writing those thoughts down, capturing them. When I'm feeling something, getting out a notebook and writing about how I'm feeling and processing those feelings rather than just shoving them back inside and suppressing them because I think I shouldn't feel that way or something. Meditation, when I do it consistently, it's incredible. And I see so many benefits from it. I was trying to do 30 days consistently for the month of November and definitely haven't been consistent, more than usual. And then yoga is another thing that I absolutely love and have not been doing a lot of recently, and I, like, feel it. Like, my body feels it, my mind feels it. So those three things together, I think, are, like, the wellness, physical wellness and mental wellness pyramid. But just me personally, I don't have a lot of that in my life right now. And feeling the absence of that in my life, I can see how important those things are, knowing that I feel so much better when I do them.
Yeah. And one of the things you mentioned, which is the one thing I wanted to get back to, was, like, if you have some of those emotions, or, like, even acknowledging it, embracing you're not doing it, but also, like, not, like, shoving the things down when they come about into your head, but like embracing them. So one of the things I've been seeing a lot in my life, and I keep, like, telling people, which I actually got from Tori. Tori's a mutual friend of ours.
Yes.
But
that we met on Startup Island.
Yeah, another connection there. But you always need both sides to everything. So, for example, like, you need happiness to know sadness, like pain to know joy, darkness to know light. So, in saying that, like, can you talk about the importance of embracing not only the good but the bad? Because they're both equally important, but it's just, like, the label of, like, bad is on there, even though you can label it as, like, an emotional message or, like, a call to action, you know?
Yeah, this is a topic that I have researched somewhat extensively and really love talking about, and I feel like it's one of the most missing things in our society that people misperceive most, and that it's that we should be positive all the time. Like, I hate that whole positive thinking mentality, because the reality of it is life sucks sometimes. There's going to be things you have to suffer for and sacrifice for, and everything's not positive all the time. And I mean, in reality, things are balanced in the end, and there will be as many benefits as there are drawbacks to every situation. So this gets controversial, but even, like, the really bad, quote, situations that we often, like, see, like, big, like, mass shootings and stuff, and, like, I don't want to get too into specific examples because that brings up a lot of emotions and feelings, but there are benefits and drawbacks to every single thing, and trying to escape the drawbacks and only seek the benefits ultimately sets you up in a situation that you can never win in, because you're never going to escape those drawbacks, and you're never going to escape those negative emotions. So aiming to create a life where you only experience happiness and not sadness, you're always going to be unfulfilled, because you're aiming for something that cannot be attained. And aiming for something that cannot be attained is kind of the number one thing that leads to your unfulfillment. So as far as accepting them, I think the number one thing to do is recognize that it's totally normal and okay to have them. Something that, like, I think a lot of us feel like we shouldn't have bad days. We shouldn't be depressed. We shouldn't be angry or just any of those perceived negative feelings, thinking that we shouldn't feel that way, when in reality, maybe you should feel that way. You know, if you're not taking care of yourself and you're not eating right and you feel depressed, well, that depression is serving a purpose, because that might be the thing that pushes you to start taking care of yourself better. And, you know, every single emotion, feeling, anything along those lines serves a purpose in our life, even the perceived negative feelings. So accepting that they're going to come, that they are okay and even sometimes beneficial, and rather than trying to push away, like when a negative feeling comes up, rather than saying, oh no, I should be thinking positively right now, get rid of that negative thought, sit with it and feel it and ask yourself or journal about why you're feeling that, what brought up that negative feeling, and get to the root of what's causing it, rather than masking over it with some mindset or even like physical thing like substances or you know, just plain out ignoring it.
That's why, going back to it, like the meditation helps so much with like a practice to being able to identify those things that come up. I think like just meditating and journaling, especially if you do it from a headspace of not being judgmental of your thoughts and just letting whatever comes up come up, you really can't bullshit yourself. Like you're just like, okay, this is what I'm feeling, and like not judging your feelings, not trying to change your, that's like a big thing about meditation, like not just letting it come up, not trying to change what comes up during the meditation. And you know, it helps you just see things more clearly without all the conditioning and noise of day-to-day life over top of it. And that's a good leeway into what I wanted to talk about, which was oftentimes, like, even myself, I'm super hard on myself sometimes, and that's because I want the best out of myself. But it comes at a cost of, you know, not being as loving to myself as I should. And I even talked to a friend yesterday about the same thing. Like, he thinks he's way too hard on himself, and it comes at the cost of his improvement or self-love. And even with any human being, or even more so college students, mental illness can derive from all this, not really self-hate, but just like being too hard on yourself. So would you want to talk about self-love and its importance in this whole journey of improvement, like just being a human? So where to start with this? This is a huge topic. Self-love is incredibly important, incredibly lacking, I think, especially not even just in the younger generation, really with everyone, starting from the premise that from a very young age we're not really taught to love ourselves. And we, especially say your parents were hard on you or something, it's always on what you could improve on more rather than what you're doing well, or that self-love is selfish, or, you know, it goes back to that guilty thing, negative connotations that were programmed into us that you shouldn't be selfish. Like, selfish isn't necessarily a negative thing. Sometimes it doesn't mean, don't try and say I'm not selfish or I'm not self-absorbed. Like, sometimes that selfishness works to your benefit, and it's okay to be selfish sometimes. There's not these certain traits that we should try to avoid. But anyways, self-love on your journey of growth and improvement is incredibly important, because so these are like what I think the 3 pillars to fulfillment are, is knowing yourself, loving yourself, and giving yourself permission to fully be yourself. And you can't give yourself permission to fully be yourself and express yourself in your most authentic form if you don't love yourself. And self-love also gets like a misrepresentation, I think. It's not about like thinking you're the greatest thing on earth. It's just really about accepting yourself for everything that you are, and all the parts of yourself that you don't love or that are quote unquote negative, like just accepting all of that for who you truly are. And once you do fully love yourself, you open up the opportunity to fully express yourself, which is where you will find that ultimate fulfillment, which
I think that's another thing, just like learning is a lifelong journey, reaching that peak of like fully 100% being yourself. It's something that personally, like, I'm unfolding every day, and like recognizing, okay, that's an area I wasn't being myself. That's an area I hadn't yet loved and was suppressing. And then it also kind of affects the step before that, which is knowing yourself. And I think a lot of us are afraid to fully get to know ourselves because we're afraid we're not going to love what we find. And
if you can't be okay with yourself, then you
can't
be okay with anything.
Right.
Yeah.
And just like that capacity to love others. If you have stuff you haven't accepted within yourself, you're not going to be able to accept that within others either, and that affects that whole dynamic. But
and that even gets into the aspect and topic of like relationships. You can get into career or like anything like diet, but like most certainly relationships. Like if you're in a relationship and you have problems or things aren't going right, if you blame the other party or blame the other side instead of just focusing on yourself, improving yourself, then the entire relationship can collapse, and there'll be like little flaws in there.
Right.
So like with everything, like I constantly say this, it like gets annoying to my own self. I always say this, but like if you want to improve any other aspect in your life, you have to start by going back to yourself.
Oh, definitely. Like it all starts with you, and I think that's like a big thing. Like if you're having problems in your relationship, or you're having problems with your career or your work or your health, look at how you are influencing that, rather than like, oh, my boyfriend is a bad person. Like, okay, how is your own self-love and your own self-awareness affecting that relationship dynamic, rather than blaming it on another person? And that's something maybe we can get into, is that whole taking responsibility for your life. But on the topic of self-love, improving yourself from a mindset of wanting better for yourself because you love yourself, rather than improving yourself because you hate yourself. So this idea that you're hard on yourself is wanting to improve, not because you see yourself as not good enough right now, but wanting to improve because you love yourself and you want the best for yourself. Yeah. And you're aware of your full potential and want to meet that. So like, you can be hard on yourself, but you can be hard with hate, or you can be hard with love. And there's a big difference depending on where it comes from. So recognizing and being honest with yourself, okay, am I pushing myself because I love myself and I want to be the best in this area and want to reach my full potential, or am I being hard on myself because I'm unhappy with who I am and what I am, and I'm trying to change myself? So I think that's like an important thing to distinguish between. Yeah,
it's funny, if you want to like throw people's mindsets off completely, like if you think about it, it's true when people say like we are selfish human beings, like we are, and it's not a bad thing. Like it's, at the end of the day, like you said, we just want more self-love, like we just want to improve ourselves more so that we can be the best we possibly can. So we kind of, in a pessimistic way, like contrarian view, like we are kind of selfish, but it's for the better. Right.
And I think in a way our selfish interest of wanting to improve ourselves does improve the world around us, and this segues perfectly into what I was saying about taking responsibility for yourself. Us taking responsibility for ourselves and for our own improvement and for becoming a better human makes if every single person took that responsibility upon themselves to make themselves the best they could and didn't try and suppress those selfish interests, the world would rise collectively because we all individually take that power. But I think a lot of us are like, oh no, I can't be selfish. I don't want to have selfish interests. To be honest,
that's like what an entrepreneur is in a way. Like it's basically kind of like fully just you, and you have to take ownership for everything that happens. Like you're really just improving yourself, and then as you grow, like your company grows and people around you rise with you. Right. So that's like a similar.
Right, and like you have this idea and you want to see this thing come into the world, but because you bring it into the world, it benefits so many people, and that or like even just like with both of us, like researching and reading these books to better ourselves. But because I better myself, I can help others in a better way.
Yeah.
And like that self-interest also helps your collective
even the
group
person
interest.
writing the book, like they became a better writer and they helped us because they're reading it, go down like each level.
Definitely. Yeah.
And if you were to, which is a good way, this is flowing perfectly.
I know, I love it.
I'm like in the ocean right now. If you could gift me 2 books, if you had like a plethora of books right now and you could give me 2 books, what 2 books would they be?
Wow.
Because I know there's a lot, and I looked at your list briefly, but like,
yeah,
if you could give me 2.
So there's a ton of books that I haven't read. Like, compared to the list of books that I want to read, comparing that to the list of books I've read, like I haven't even made a dent in it. So this could definitely change down the line. But as I've been recently talking about in my newsletter, I'm almost finished with it. But 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson has like, I love that book so much, and definitely will gift you that one. And then I think the second one would be The Art of Possibility by Rose and Ben Zander. And that one is kind of all about seeing the world as a place full of possibility and changing your perspectives and how we look at things. And it just had like, I want to say 12 rules in it, but just like kind of life rules that guide how you live. Great for entrepreneurs, but really just great for anyone who maybe thinks that life is fixed and limited and your possibilities are only so far and wide. That really like shifted my perspective on what is possible, and just to have like more fun in life and not take it so seriously and all that kind of stuff. So those are my top 2 right now. But some that are on the top of my list are Mastery and 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. I haven't read either one, and I really want to dive into his work.
I want to get into his work too.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast with him and Aubrey Marcus earlier on the way here, actually. And they were talking, I guess he just came out with a new book about like human nature and integrating ourselves into nature and our primal tendencies. So it sounds super interesting.
No, it's funny you say that, because one of the things I've been looking into is like Tao and Taoism. If you have time, you know what it is. I
don't know much. I know like what it is. I don't know much
so
about it.
So that's similar to like aligning yourself with human nature.
Okay.
But like connecting the dots in a way, I see a constant theme in that there's this system we have, and whether it's the book with the Art of Possibility with the 12 laws of that, or like the 12 rules, or like Jordan Peterson's book with the 12 Rules of Life, right? Or like anything you learn or do or read or like get stuff from, I think it's just a matter of pulling out what is important for you and like adding it into the ingredients of your mixing pot. Right. So it's not really taking everything as a whole, but just like being nitpicky. Yeah. I think that's huge. Like, I mean, it will be very unlikely that you resonate with everything someone says. Yeah. And like, even a lot of stuff I read, I'll read one person's thing and absolutely love it, and read someone else's thing and absolutely love it, and they both vastly contradict each other. And not to like hate on Gary Vee, but he is like one of these people that I disagree with so much of the stuff that he says, but also find so much value in the content he produces, and like being able to take what resonates with you and leave what doesn't, rather than writing someone off because they said something that offended you or something like that, is super important. That's how you're gonna be able to collect that, your own kind of library of knowledge and wisdom nuggets. Yeah, exactly. He even says that himself, like, don't take everything I say like to heart, just like take what you need. And even you say that in looking at like your entire website, you say, I'm no expert, and this is verbatim, I'm no expert. I'm not here to tell you what is right, but rather to guide you and support you in finding your right way. Right. So like you always talk about that. Yeah, as well. And that's like something that I think stops a lot of young people. But like, I'm 21 years old. I have so much to learn. Exactly. I'm on this journey with you. I'm learning new things every day. There's blog posts that I wrote at like the beginning of my journey that I now cringe at, and I'm like, oh my god, I have a totally different perspective on that now. Though. It's really cool, and
I think that's a big thing in like this social media influencer, blogger, podcast, all that kind of industries. Like everyone's like, position yourself as an expert. Like you need to be an expert in something, but
people appreciate that.
Yeah, like
that
I'm not an expert. Like I don't know if is anyone like maybe like someone honestly like Jordan Peterson who's had like a lifetime to research, but even he says it in like the beginning chapters of his book. That's like, this is by no means the right way. It's what I know to be most true right now, but all truth is really finding something that's a little less untrue than the last thing, but really reaching that, like, how do you know if it's ultimate truth? Because you could have a new experiences that shifts that. So really, rather than saying, this is how I'm doing things and it's right, it's like, here's how I'm doing things. This is working for me right now. Maybe you could try it and it might work. But also, more so setting up that framework to help people recognize that they can form their own perceptions. And not, like, giving them the perception to form, but letting them know that, like, okay, what you've been taught all your life might not really be true. So trying to inspire them to go out and form their own perceptions, discover your own purpose, carve your own path, rather than saying, all right, here's the best path to take this one. Because that's no different than what we were taught growing up. You know, growing up, we're taught that this is the right way and this is how it has to be done. And I'm not trying to share a right way of doing things, but just how about we all collectively get together and try to form our own paths and create fulfilling lives for ourselves, because what works for me is probably way different than what works for you or anyone else. You know, we're all unique and complex with a different set of values and a different priority list, and different things are going to serve each of us differently. So I think it's very hard to share a right way of doing things, but more so a framework to follow to find your own right way.
Exactly. And I love that about you so much, and it goes back to what you said about being purpose-driven and more intentional in a time where, like you said, all these influencers are doing things for the money real quick, or they think they know everything, or even when it goes to fitness influencers or nutritionists, like, this is the right way, this is the pill you have to take, this is the diet you need to have. It's just, like you said, fitting yourself into that framework and having the right foundation to guide you. Yeah, just golden nuggets themselves right there. And in a way of like branching off into another topic, I want to ask you, I know you talked about your personal advisory board. For people that don't know, like there is a board of directors in a company, a personal advisory board is, or are the 5 to 10 people you have in your life that you can go to for critiquement or supporting you or empowering you or helping lift you up in your journey. So for me, I have my own personal advisory board, but for you, who are those 5 to 10 people you have for yourself? Yeah,
so I know this isn't how like a lot of people think about mentors or your personal advisory board, but a lot of my mentors are people that I don't really know, that I follow their content closely online. I've like taken their online courses, or I'm in their group programs or something like that, that I don't physically know them personally and call them on the phone when I have a problem, but that if I'm working through something in a certain area of life, I can be like, okay, I'll refer to their philosophies. So like I would say Jordan Peterson is one of those people. A person from Australia, Lewis Mocker. I have to look him up. Yeah, definitely look him up and follow his content. It's quite controversial. Just like the way he presents things in a very raw form. But he's someone who, especially in like finances and wealth, so I kind of have different people, like 1 or 2 people that I really resonate with their stuff, and I have one for each area of life. So there's 7 areas of life: health, wealth, spirituality, which includes purpose, your vocation and mission, which is your career, relationships, social leadership, which is your influence, and I can't believe I can't think of this. I write about this stuff all the time. I'm sure it'll come to me.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure people can find it on.
Yeah, I have like
yeah.
I have a blog post that dives into like.
I was gonna say you literally identified like you have those 7 categories and you have one for each or multiple for each.
Yeah,
really?
so I don't have
That's
it like
amazing.
written down, but like no, that would be under vocation. I was gonna say business, but like so like when it comes to like business stuff, I have certain people that I know I really resonate with their business content and like. Because, I mean, there's so many people sharing content, sharing wisdom out there that, and it all, as I said, contradicts each other. So, like, if you are just trying to take in information from everyone, you're just...
It's like the information overload.
Right, you're in information overload, and you're just, like, paralyzed by how much conflicting information there is. So, regardless of who it is, I mean, some people that I know personally, like, Charlie Horn was... founded the Horn program at Delaware. I would consider him a big mentor of mine. Oh, okay, the last area is wisdom. Knowledge and wisdom. But just like having different people in different areas that when it really comes down to like you're not sure what to do, referring to that person rather than like just following anyone. And it's not that you're trying to be that person, but you know that person has results in that area. You are kind of aiming for those results that person has in that area, following closely what they do, and, you know, buying their products that you really resonate with.
Yeah, and that goes back to what I see again. It's just you're so intentional and, like, really focused on those certain people so you know who to go to when you really need it. So that... Yeah,
that is something that, like,
crucial.
In the beginning of my, especially business journey, it was like, this person's saying I should do this blogging and this is the only way to do it. And then this person's like, oh no, you have to do it this way. And I was like, all right, whose way do I resonate with most? Who can I like refer back to when I'm just like feeling completely lost? And narrowing those things down really helped me just eliminate that overwhelm of information overload.
And I believe we touched on every topic I wanted to touch on, and I know every person is probably feeling really good about everything they heard, but lastly, most importantly, one thing we always ask is, and what I want to ask you is, what is your big dream? So what impact do you want to have on others in your life, and what actions are you taking to get there?
Awesome. I love that question. So my big dream and my big vision is this world where people live purpose-driven lives and people do what fulfills them and people take responsibility for their own self. And, you know, just a world where people are conscious of truth as far as we know it and are just not living these like blind, untrue lives that are just so influenced by social conditioning and the media and social media and just like all this junk and noise that's out there that is so far from the truth and is so toxic, creating a world where the truth overrides that and mass consciousness is aware of the truth and the masses are fulfilled, not just a few people who have decided to pursue an alternate path. So as far as action steps to getting there, of course, just trying to grow my platform and grow my influence and my voice, that I can create a space where that message is heard, and hopefully in the future collaborating with other people on stuff like this, on podcasts, on even bigger projects where other people are trying to accomplish that mission as well. And I think the biggest action step in all of that is seeking that truth for myself. And like, if I'm going to fulfill that mission of helping people live fulfilling lives, I have to work every day to create a fulfilling life for myself. And if I'm going to shed light on the truth, I have to live that truth rather than just study it. And that is, I think, the biggest action step that is somewhat hard to balance with business, because, you know, I get often caught up in like all the day-to-day CEO kind of tasks to do for business, and I'm like, oh wait, part of my business is working on myself, and like I gotta be doing the journaling, and I need to be doing the meditation and the yoga. Like they're all things that are going to help me move my business forward and help me share a better message, doing the selfish things as we talked about that are gonna help me learn what I need to know to make that vision come to life.
Yeah, and totally bring it full circle there.
Definitely.
That really hit it home. Like I said again in the beginning, I just want to reiterate it. I admire what you do.
Thank
I
you
appreciate
so
you
much.
being here, and I thank you for being a person driven by purpose and doing what you're doing and being of service to others. It's really awesome to see.
You as well. I love like what you're sharing, this whole message of pursuing your dreams and going after those things that you're inspired by is right. Like our messages are so aligned, and I thank you for what you're doing as well. So this was so much fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem, and thank you. But lastly, what is both if you want to give your personal or just Prosperous Pursuit, like social media, if you want to highlight that real quick? Yeah,
so I've kind of just like stopped using my personal one. So the best place to find me mostly on Instagram is like my number one platform, the Prosperous Pursuit. Make sure you include the in the front. It's like the
I'll put it in the footnotes.
Yeah, you can put it in the footnotes. On there, and then I also send out a weekly email every Wednesday, which is, I call it a newsletter, but it's not really just updates about what I'm doing or anything. Each one has a quick tip that you can implement immediately into your life to improve your well-being and fulfillment. And then a featured topic, which is whatever my blog post is for that week, which I am changing up the format on. So if you get to it now, you'll see the new format. And a breakdown of some philosophy or principle that I have been studying throughout the week. And then a wise question that you can ask yourself, because I truly believe the quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions you ask. So high quality questions to ask yourself, and then any book or podcast recommendations, tools, resources, any of that stuff. So I can also have Anthony include the link to sign up for that in the footnotes. That's probably one of the most valuable things you can subscribe to.
Awesome. I'll definitely put that, so make sure you sign up for that.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and what we are doing at Dream Big & Co., like always, it would mean a lot if you can become involved, interact, join us in this community, in this movement. You can do so by subscribing to this podcast on any of the following 10 podcasting platforms, all available. Our channel on YouTube at Dream Big & Co., and follow us on social media at Dream Big & Co. That will all be in the footnotes. But most importantly, we ultimately do this for you to add value to your lives, your everyday interactions, and practical, pragmatic operations. So if there is anything you like, dislike, or want changed, please rate this episode and leave a review. You can even email us at dreambigpodcast@gmail.com or dreambigandco@gmail.com. Thank you, and have a great one.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.